Albany Public Library according to the best of my ability. Trustee of the Albany Public Library.
Trustee of the Albany Public Library.
According to the best of my ability.
According to the best of my ability.
So I call the meeting to order, but people aren't able to access some documents. If you have Chromebooks, I understand. So, you can share. Are we ready for? We have public comment. Yes, we do. And we also have a presentation, so that should work. Okay. Is there anyone from the public who would like to make a comment tonight? Okay. Thank you. Oh, you do? What?
Just barking. I guess it did end.
Do you want to make a comment, or? Okay. All right, then we can have the presentation for the patron survey.
So I'm just going to briefly go over with you what we got on the June patron survey, which talked about, focused on collections and fine free a little bit. We had 611 respondents, and Strat wanted me to point out to you about kind of comparing where the respondents came from versus the served percentages for those home locations. So people identified their home library. Delaware, Howe, North Albany, and Washington Ave had about the same number of people, percentage of people responding to the survey as the served percentage out of the whole system. Arbor Hill was less represented, and Bach and Pine Hills were overrepresented in terms of the responses compared to the amount of served they typically do.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yep.
It may not be letting us open documents if we don't sign in, if we don't log in.
You don't necessarily have to right now. You can be in a public view. It's more of a Wi-Fi issue. Melanie is printing out all of the documents right now, and we will have them momentarily.
I didn't sign in.
Oh, okay,
If you
sorry.
want to sign in, you can, but you don't have to. It should be in public view.
You know what, since Sarah has it, do you want to just use my computer for a minute?
No, Matthew just got it, so that's why I was just, I'm sorry.
I'm not
And so I wasn't paying any attention
I know,
to
you're
one
gonna make
thing
me say the
you
hard
said.
part.
Looking at this stupid screen.
Okay, listen to me. All right. So we had 611 respondents to the survey, which focused on primarily collections and how people feel about fine free. So we wanted to compare. We asked people to identify their home branch, what they consider their home branch, and then we looked at how many people responded based on those home branches and compared them to the percentage of circulation that each of those branches typically has. So we found in terms of this survey that Delaware, Howe, North Albany, and Washington Ave had about the same percentage of respondents as they do circulation. Arbor Hill was less represented in the survey, and Bach and Pine Hills were overrepresented in the survey in terms of what their circulation percentages are. So just kind of a interesting kind of thing. And because this focused a lot on collections, books, DVDs, that kind of thing, we may have gotten, respondents that are a little different than when we ask about technology questions and things like that. We asked them how they find out, or how they find books to borrow, how they get the books. A gigantic percentage of them request through the online catalog and browse the library shelves. A smaller percentage, about 20%, ask library staff for suggestions, and then another 19% or so get recommendations from our social media. We do a book of the week on Friday, and then there's another one that we do on Thursday. So there's twice a week when we do recommendations on social media for books to check out. And then we also have bookmarks and printed materials in the library, so people are looking at those as well. So they're getting things, finding out about things from different sources, so that's nice. In terms of finding items on the shelves, 96% of the people said that they either always or sometimes find something on the shelf to borrow. 3% said that they hardly ever find anything, so that's not worried about that. And then we get to kind of the fine free stuff. We asked if they noticed a difference in how long they have to wait for their reserved items. A quarter of them think that they're getting stuff quicker. 7% said they feel like it's taking longer for things to get to them, and then 67% said they haven't noticed a difference. So that's, I mean, I get books all the time too, and I don't know that you necessarily make the distinction like, oh my gosh, it took an extra week to get this thing, when you don't necessarily have an idea of how long it's going to take in the first place. So I'm not sure what to make of that. The most important thing I think is we asked them to tell us about their experience with the fine-free policy. So we found that 46% of the people like it, love it, think it's awesome, great idea, it helps encourage people to use the library, bring people back who maybe haven't been using it for all the things that we thought when we started to do this that would happen. 46% of the people are telling us. 3% are telling us they don't like it. And the typical responses for that are they think that we should still collect fines, that it's a revenue source that we should not be skipping out on. They're afraid that it doesn't encourage personal responsibility, that a lot of people said, well, I always bring my books back on time. I've never brought my books back late, so it's not fair that other people get to bring theirs back late and then I'm gonna have to wait longer for my item. So that's kind of the thing for the don't like fine free. Another 10% are kind of, not necessarily so-so, they like it, but they also think that they're using it properly, but other people might not. So it's a lot of it is this personal responsibility thing, that people are kind of judging their neighbors on how they're handling their books and things. The one that I think is interesting too is 21% told us they either don't have experience with fine free or don't know what it is. Again, this is where we got into the I always return my stuff on time, so I don't need to use fine free. Other people say, it might be too early to tell or they're not really sure. So this is one of those things that we know from trying to market all kinds of new policies and initiatives, activities, all this kind of stuff, that when something's not new anymore, we have to remind people of what it is. So we've been doing did you knows in social media and the e-newsletter and digital signs, kind of reminding people about maybe museum passes or other things that we're doing that maybe aren't so fresh and new, and we're going to add fine free to the rotation of things that we're trying to remind people about. So that's, I think overall we feel pretty happy with the results. Scott might have some more he wants to say.
I would say overall, the one thing that was disappointing about this survey is underrepresentation. We're still not getting more than 1,000. We say we have 75,000 card holders, and we're getting 600 responses. We went back to the handing out of physical sheets and getting our clerks, giving them talking points, giving our library staff talking points, getting people to fill out this survey, but still didn't really move the needle. Did we get more respondents?
We did get more paper ones back this time than the last time we did that, but it was less than 30. It's not a big percentage of what we do.
We've gone with longer surveys, now we're doing shorter surveys. I think it's really important that we continue to do surveys, but it's going to be a real challenge for us to figure out how to get more people to do them. One thing that might be good is to use our trustees and to use our friends and our foundation to maybe push this out on their social media and try to get more people to do it that way. But I think from just the library perspective, it's something that we struggle with. There are some libraries that hire marketing firms that do phone surveys. That might be something that we think about doing in the future if we really think it's important. But right now, as a mechanism done internally, I'm not sure how much more we're going to move the needle in terms of participation.
Any questions for Stephanie or Scott on the survey?
I would like for us to experiment with, some alternative method for the lower performing libraries, or lower evaluated libraries, and maybe that's, a focus group, which is not, you don't get the numbers, but you might get the content, feel, tone, that kind of thing. And, if we have something that we really need to get input on, then maybe we do hire the phone marketing, who answers their phone marketers? I certainly don't, So I don't know how you, I think the focus group stuff might.
We will be going into next year. We'll be working on the next strategic plan. So that provides us an opportunity to do that. The other thing I want to remind the group is we do comment cards and we review comment cards on a regular basis. So this is this is a 6-month opportunity for people to provide us feedback, but we're constantly receiving feedback over the year.
So is there the participation in comment cards in those lower participating evaluation?
Interestingly enough, yes. So I would say we get the majority of our comment cards from Hal and here.
Yeah.
So, but Hal, again, if you look at the numbers, in terms of, its percentage of circulation compared to respondents, it's only a point off. So Hal actually had a pretty good response rate, especially historically. So our look now, I think also we need to pinpoint, look at the branches that under-responded and say, what do we do here differently? Because if we do a shotgun approach and go, oh, we'll do this instead, I think if we do phone, you're just going to get people who are going to answer the phone. And I think you might see that skewed towards other parts of the city.
Right.
So I think it's, do we have somebody stand at the door of Arbor Hill and spend their day for a week with a tablet saying, fill the survey out, please? That might be, we might need to adjust, not treat. We might need to adjust our approach to every branch differently.
Right. Yeah.
Why do you think you have a lower response at Arbor Hill?
I don't think we have as many patron emails. So this is 100% social media email. So that's why we started doing the paper surveys. And that's a big reason why we're big on the paper surveys. But you also have to then rely on the person to do the paper survey and hand it back to you. But I think for the most part, when we look at where do we have solid emails, where are people following us on social media, it tends to skew towards the branches, tends to skew towards here in Pine Hills, which are our big branches.
I'm curious about the difference between Arbor Hill and Howell.
I don't know. But that's something that we need to dive into. I think some of that may be program participation in How is really big. So that may mean the patrons who come to programs, instead of just coming to use it as a third space, tend to sign up for programs, therefore we attach ourselves to their emails.
Okay, well, I won't dance with this too much, but I'm curious as to the difference between programming at Howell and Arbor Hill, and if that could be a factor here.
Oh my gosh.
Who's right there?
That's a perfect segue to approve the minutes.
I'm gonna turn this on forever.
So next on the agenda is the minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Jenna, thank you. Second, Matthew, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Getting used to my board docs. Okay. Next up is treasurer's report and check register. So, Adam, do you want to highlight anything for us in either the treasurer's report or the check register?
Well, I think most everything is pretty straightforward on the month being reported here. The check registers, well, I actually don't have it in front of me, but yeah, again, the majority of the large charges are pretty typical vendors. If anyone has any questions on anything you're seeing on these documents, they'll be happy to try and answer them.
So,
Sutherland Consulting Group,
Yes, I believe that was E-rate consulting.
E-rate Consulting?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So for the E-rate funding that we apply for every year, we've hired a consultant because they've been able to find us additional ways of applying for certain funds. So it was a conversation that was started at one of the conferences? PLA. And so we've normally applied for only Category 1 funding, and they've been able to determine that are able to apply for Category 2 funding as well. So they've been consulting with us on how to get the paperwork done and coordinating that and handling all the filing of the forms for us.
So is that a one-time contract, or is that something that will continue to be contracted?
It's annual, for not on a yearly basis, so that's for this, what charge you're seeing is for the next funding year, or this
And
coming.
how much do we get in E-rate funding?
Usually around 40,000, and that's just with the Category 1 funding. We're hoping to get another about 5,000 to 10,000 with the Category 2 funding.
So we pay over 5,000 a year to maximize our $45,000?
Yes.
Is that because E-rate is a bear and nobody wants to do it?
Yes.
Has staff refused to do it finally here?
So I was doing it for a while, and there was a deadline because they changed the system up and went to a portal system, and there was a deadline that was missed, and we lost out on some funding for that. So we figured it was a wise investment, so in the process of filing and having all the different, because there's like 7 different deadlines throughout the year to file, that you have to keep up with the paperwork. And sometimes it gets lost in the shuffle, so we figured it was a good investment, so we don't lose out on that funding anymore.
Yeah, that's a great piece of, opportunity for great piece of journalism there. Like, how is this company, how is it that a federal grant could be so complicated that it
Oh,
takes, that's a big percentage of a grant award, of that much of a grant award. And I know staff has been completely disgusted with that process for many years.
And it continues to change.
That's just every year, the filing changes, the laws change, how much we can apply for changes, what we can apply for changes. So it was one of those situations that they double check everything for us, and they also keep all the records, because we have to keep any records for filing for 10 years. And so they make sure everything is organized.
What a racket.
So can you, I was just gonna ask if you can explain what E-rate is?
So E-rate is federal funding to reimburse us for internet and up until this year, phone service, but phone service was dropped this year. It covers the Category 1 funding covered internet access, broadband access, essentially all of our bandwidth that we get. Category 2 funding can cover wiring, additional hardware, servers, and such of that nature that we weren't applying for before. So, including, we're hoping to expand some of our wireless points in the buildings, and the Category 2 funding will help to cover those costs.
One way this company helped us out last go around was we went to fiber and we expanded our network. And we signed on to dark fiber, and I think that got extremely tricky. So we were very grateful to this for this company to help us kind of navigate through the process, because I know the FCC was not crazy about us going dark fiber.
And there's review sessions that, a review process that we're still in the process of going through, that they're handling all the review, and they have somebody who is actually, this consulting firm had somebody who's on the FCC side of determining who gets what funding and what not, and then she went to the E-rate side, or the consulting side, so she's actually has the insight of what they're actually looking for, so she can make sure all the correct forms and documentation is filled.
Well, that seems like a great investment of $5,200. But at some point, I would suggest that the finance and the budget committee think about whether it's worth our while to do this, and that's insane. It has been insane for a long time.
Yes, sir.
Bottom of the first page, what's going on with those 3 voids, particularly the malware bites? Are these expenses that we no longer have to pay? Are we paying them later?
That was actually just a simple data entry error. If you look, let's see, check number 10179 is also for malware bites, and that is half of the voided amount. There was just a little error there.
So do we owe them the other half?
Yes, that was the correct amount that we owed them, $72.50.15.
What's corporate payments systems?
That is our company credit card, which I think 9 people have credit cards that they use regularly now. A big portion of that was, I believe, televisions that IT purchased.
The projectors at most of the branches are starting to die out, and the replacement cost of purchasing a new projector and keeping up with the screen repair that was also happening and the light bulb replacements that had to be done at least once a year, we determined that it was more cost efficient to use large screen monitors at each of the branches or televisions. So that's what we have been replacing everything with.
At the top of the second page, Albany YMCA, $1,600, and then that's repeated?
Yes, that is, those are going to be our final payments to the YMCA. That's for July and August rent services.
And I want to point out 10195, which is the Library Trustees Association of New York State. So we are all members of that association, and so hopefully they'll give us some newsletters or something sometime. So that's another resource for us as trustees. Are we ready for a motion to approve the check register?
I'll make a motion.
Right, Alyssa, thank you. Second, Sarah, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Alright. Oh, capital fund. New thing on our agenda. So, you approve the capital fund separately. So we're doing the check register separately for that. So we're seeing how the expenses are spent there. Are you looking for that?
Oh, right here.
looks like there are 3 checks for capital, for the auditorium in this building. I'll take a motion to approve the capital fund expenditures.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you.
Second.
Thanks, Matthew. Any questions, discussion? All right, oh yeah.
Can I just get a reminder on what they're for?
So carousel, all of these are for upgrades to the auditorium, including replacing the retractable wall, redoing the wiring, and redoing some of the lighting that's in there. Next meeting, we will actually have a sheet that looks a lot like our balance sheet for just capital projects. But right now, this $30,000 definitely keeps us under the budgeted amount that was set by the board.
Okay, all in favor? All right, thank you. Next up is the Facilities Committee report.
We have to do the treasurer's report. Do we approve that?
Oh, we don't approve it. Sorry, we can just ask questions about it? Do you have questions about it? Okay. All right, so Facilities Committee, and I saw that come around.
It's
And,
also been added to the board docs.
oh,
Wonder Woman over here has it on
do I
your
have
board
to
doc.
refresh to get that? Let's see.
There's a
No,
type,
it's right there.
there's a typo on the paper one that changes the meaning of the sentence, so.
Oh, wow, that's awesome, okay.
But it's corrected on the board document.
Okay, so, Alyssa, Matthew, you're gonna.
Sure. So, Matthew and I both did minutes for
We
this
did.
meeting, and they are remarkably similar. Good news.
Yes.
Okay. So, we met to talk about the New York State Library Construction Grant, possible projects. And, the staff and Dan, Scott and Dan brought to us 3 proposals. One was the Delaware parking lot and roof, roof replacement, at Delaware, and that total project is $54,000. And then 2 other projects, which are the emergency generator projects. So the library construction grant can actually be used to purchase generators for our buildings. And so this was a new possibility for the library, completely in line with our destination during cold blue or during hot spells. Sometimes the city contacts us and asks us to stay open as cooling locations.
And like second responder.
Yeah, second responders, yeah. So we think it's a great project, and the staff was ready to just put forward the first one, the Delaware parking lot and roof issue. But we were reminded that there was additional library construction funds committed during the end of the legislative session, so another $20 million. So that changes, the scope of what we could request. So the committee is making a recommendation, which we'll vote on later, I guess, to adopt all 3 projects. So the Delaware parking lot and roof at $54,000, and 2 generator projects, one at Pine Hills and one at Howe for $15,000 each. That brings us to an $84,000 library construction project total, of which we'd expect to get 75% reimbursed. And so the committee also recommends that we allocate up to $21,000 of capital funds to match that. But as you know, in the past, we've been able to use operation money and when we've been managing things well. So think that's a great way to maximize state funds. Is that pretty much it? Full disclosure, I forgot about the meeting and met them on the phone, and so I did not vote, but there was a quorum and it was voted to go forward. That's it. Any questions? All right.
Thank you. So next is the strategic plan ad hoc committee. And there's 2 attachments there, our minutes and then the tactics we came up with. So that was Sarah, Alyssa, and myself. We took the information that we worked on at the retreat and created tactics and the other kind of things that the library has done, the structure they've done to track the strategic plan and filled it out. So I put more in the minutes, but so those are all on the second handout, the cultivating leadership handout, because that's the goal we're covered under. And our objective is number 3, which is on the 3rd page. So we came up with 5 tactics for ourselves, and what we plan to do that I must have deleted from the minutes by accident, was we wanted to present this to the rest of the trustees tonight, get a chance to think about it, and then we vote on it in August, so that we can decide, how we want to move forward. So, Alyssa, Sarah, do you want to go through the tactics? Okay.
Sure. I'll do tactic 1. Sarah, you can do tactic 2.
I'll do tactic 3. We can
First one was trustees regularly report on board representation at community and library events and have the communication tools to do it. So this is to add to the board agenda an item where we, the board, would report out when we've attended community events and presented ourselves, participated as representing library trustees. And the kind of addition to that is that the trustees regularly practice identifying as trustees in the community and kind of get that back and forth going. Perhaps we begin to get invited as elected officials to things. As you recall, we had that conversation about honorable and what our responsibilities are.
So tactic 2, increase recognition of library and staff service and leadership in the community. This came out of the conversation that the library and the staff do such a great job, and while they're being recognized with some awards, we've noticed that there are other awards in the community that either we see it after the fact, after somebody wins it, and it's, oh, this wasn't even on our radar. We didn't know about this award. We should have applied for it. We missed the deadline. So this was really, how do we put in more applications, and how do we bring more awards to the library for exceptional service that's already being done? How do we get the library recognized more? And so really the idea was to possibly have the nominations committee put together a similar deadline grid that the policy committee works off of for reviewing policies. So it's a cyclical annual calendar, and we can compile these dates of deadlines for community awards and make sure that somebody is applying for these awards and that the library is getting recognized for a job well done.
Tactic number 3, the trustees work together to establish APL board roles and responsibility. So that would include things like job descriptions of trustees, I don't know why I remember, officers, treasurer, committees, 'cause we don't have that written except in the bylaws. And that we would, as a group, perhaps our annual meeting, set some annual board goals collectively and then assess progress each year. And so board goals for this year might be to do some of these things, right? And because the strategic plan goes to the end of 2020. The point person with the individual trustees, also the executive committee, could kind of take an overarching role here, and then committee chairs for the committee, job descriptions.
So number 4, going along with the idea that we set, board roles and responsibilities and goals together is, we talked about how do board members evaluate our own participation, and it was kind of strange to think about how we would evaluate each other. So what we really focused in on is self-evaluation and reflection. And so building in a time at the annual meeting for personal trustee goal setting and self-reflection, so that, if chosen, we, the trustees, could share with each other, this is what I hope to accomplish in this year. And then share that, and then at the following year, be able to say, this is what I said I was gonna do, did I do it? And, some back and forth about that, so. And then there's the other piece, adding a question in our quarterly evaluation that kind of reminds us that we made these commitments. Like, maybe I wouldn't forget facility committee meetings. Like, that's a good aspect.
And then the last one should say tactic number 5.
Ooh.
And that's
Sorry.
explore opportunities to network with similar libraries throughout New York State. I think from discussing these during the breakout we had at the retreat, and as the committee, while we were coming up with and discussing the other tactics, that really brought up the question, what are other boards doing? And just really, we honed in on, we want to talk to other library boards, see what they're doing. So having networking opportunities, possibly after an advocacy day, even hosting something since we are the capital region, or we're a central location in the state. So having people come here, but really just, again, wanting to network and speak with other library trustees throughout the state, see what they're doing.
Didn't CVLC do a trustees meetup? They used to. This is something that is also, this is no way a critique, but we are very unique. So it's useful to talk to other boards that are elected boards. I've gone to a lot of board stuff. It's very different. It's not elected board. Appointed boards tend to be convulsed.
I think this was also related to the first one about raising our profile in the community, but also thinking about raising our profile in those other boards.
Yeah, and I mean, it's still good to talk to those non-elected
That's good.
yokels, but just joking, joking. Wonderful community servants on elected or non-elected boards, but it's useful to know the differences in the way that our board runs as well.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely be looking to Sarah.
I think there could be value to talking to both types of
Oh, yeah.
boards. Because as a central board, our role is much different. And so, as a central library, I should say, the role is much different than some of the other libraries, as is the difference between elected boards and the other people.
I'm just completely joking.
No, but I'm serious. There are differences. But the thing is about having the relationships and being out there with the other boards is that we provide a service. And it would be good for them to know who we are and us to have conversation with them and have an understanding of what their needs are on a more personal level, you know. And with other boards that are more like us, it would be just good to know, you know, what we have in common and how we, you know, just might get some additional thinking based on what others who are like us are doing.
And I just wanted to shout out the UL's annual meeting and hoopla that they do. We had a good time attending, and we did speak to a lot of other board members. So that's a nice opportunity to network. So if you missed it this year,
What was that?
the the Upper Hudson Library System does their big annual meeting kind of publicly with all boards participating, and it's great. So you might have been busy this year, but come next year, because it's a great chance to network with other board people. Chocolate fountain.
And there's chocolate.
Not
Weirdly
always.
at the beginning and not the end. There was
That
like
was
a,
weird, but
yeah.
not always a chocolate fountain. Not every time, so don't get your hopes up.
So, it's a lot, right? There's a lot to do, and we've sort of identified, sometimes in cases committees, sometimes identified a need to appoint a specific trustee to kind of pay attention to it, so that it's not always one person kind of getting people to do this, whether it's the trustees or staff. So that's one of the ways we're trying to distribute the responsibility of it. So, any more comments or questions? Yes?
I just wanted to say that I was so psyched after our meeting that I was an elected official, which I completely forgot about. And so I went to high school graduation, a bunch of my students I've worked with, and other great teachers I've worked with, graduating, and I'm standing in the back like a mouse, of course, and they say, and will our elected officials please stand up? And it's definitely not me, but it's like the mayor and like everybody else. So I guess I have to email the principal next year and be like, that's what I'll say in my email.
Well, we did talk about even having not a script, but just kind of talking points about how you have that conversation and.
Yeah, because I don't want to get fired either.
Well, you're just, you know, that is you are an elected official. So yeah, if you have more thoughts, please, you know, share them now, or we can talk amongst ourselves, but we want to bring this back up, amongst ourselves on email. We want to bring this back up in August to commit to it and say, all right, we're going to take this on, and I'm willing to help here. Thanks. Okay, director's report.
So, looking forward, upcoming programs of note, I will be hosting a Cosmic Escape Room on July 23rd. Delaware will be hosting the Ever Pocket Balloon Twisting with Balloon Gal Jenny on July 18th. Bach is putting on a matinee musical film series featuring in July South Pacific on the 16th and Bye Bye Birdie on August 27th. And Bach will also be hosting a Playful Engineers program workshop for kids on July 10th. Looking back at June, the Summer Reading Challenge has begun. Staff across the district visited multiple schools and events to promote programs and services across the city. Washington Ave hosted a new support group for grandparents and relatives caring for their next of kin. Arbor Hill West Hill branch celebrated Juneteenth with local food, drumming and dancing. There's some great photos of that program. That was fantastic. The Pine Hills branch hosted the opening reception for Picture This. This is our first art exhibition in partnership with the Alpaca Gallery. Probably the best attended art opening I've been to in the 5 years that I've been with APL as the executive director. The Bach branch's Bach Live Summer Music Series has been very well attended and very well received. However, we should note to the board, we have received a complaint from a concerned neighbor about events, not just music, but in the garden in general, and we've reached out to them to address their concerns, but we have looked into some of their complaints, and we're addressing them in one way or another. The Delaware branch began a citizenship classes in partnership with USCRI. And for the second year in a row, the Howe branch offered a career readiness program leading into the city's Second Chance Job Fair. And the North Albany branch hosted experts who offered advice and guidance on keeping chickens. This was right before the law passed, so they were very excited when the law went through. So are some of my family members. Operations, human resources will now be setting up, and I think this was a brilliant idea, setting up tables at our libraries to do recruitment. We're always looking for third spaces to do recruitment. Why not do it right here? Facilities reports that the work on the roof at Howe has begun. Remember, that's the 2019 construction grant project. IT has already started a staff PC computer upgrades as part of the 3-year IT plan. And collection management services, these are the people who shepherd our collection, has started preparing to do an inventory of the collection at Washington Avenue. I don't believe we've done an inventory of the collection here in ever. So I will say 20 years. We'll say 20 years. Action items from the last board meeting. IT items have been decommissioned, and also the MOU between the Albany City School District and the Albany Public Library with regard to North Albany has been signed. Karen was gracious enough, it needed to be signed by board presidents. She came over and we got it notarized, and we're good to go.
Because you can do that at the library.
Yes, you can. So that's my report for the month of June. So I'll open the floor to questions.
Fun summer. Cool stuff.
And again, as always, this is a very, 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 very tiny sample of the programs we have going on over the summer.
How did Drag Queen Story Hour go?
We'll do a full report for the next board meeting, but we had close to 100 attendees.
Whoa.
And I was away and did not get one call from patrons.
Statistics?
Statistics. Overall, has been good. Circulation again is not growing, but it seems like we have stopped the bleeding when it comes to statistics, and probably what we will do is a report in August to parse out or decouple media circulation from book circulation. Again, the trend in book circulation seems to be pretty steady, and the trend in media circulation continues to drop like a stone. Computers remain about level, and programming and room usage have grown. So we continue to see most of our usage here grow, and grow by over 5%. I will also note that there's a memo in board docs which has an overview. I went to ALA this year. It was my first in 20 years as a librarian. My first time going to the American Library Association annual conference. Took a lot of getting over my uncomfortableness with being social, but I actually really was glad that I went. I learned a lot. Sarah was kind enough to invite me out to dinner. I learned more probably in those 2 hours, hanging out with other library people, than I may have the entire conference, but it was definitely worth going. And many of the things that we cover in our strategic plan and many of our concerns were addressed in some of those sessions that I attended. It was well worth it.
I really appreciate that you read this memo.
Yeah, it's great.
I can't believe you got away with not going to ALA for 20 years.
Yeah.
Someone convinced me to go to
There's a
PLA
vendor
2 years
all the
ago,
time.
so I've got a full PLA.
So let's remember that we all don't know the acronyms.
Public Library Association, which is part of the American Library Association.
It's also a very large conference, but not as large.
Is the American Library Association. Is the American Library Association conference? You mean?
Yeah, it's the big, yeah. It can only be in certain cities because you need that big a convention center.
Is not for the faint of heart.
So yes, this is a great session.
Yeah, this is an awesome,
That's
I
amazing.
want to do this now.
Okay, next up is appointment of board treasurer, who was unable to make it tonight. So do we just vote him to approve him? Okay,
It's your prerogative, obviously, but yes.
sure,
yeah.
right, but that would be the process, and then we can do those later. Okay, so Chuck Slatterick is our board treasurer, and so we are looking to reappoint him for the next year. And so I'll need a motion to do that. Thank you, Jenna.
Mr. Slattery.
Yeah. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Tom. Any discussion?
Did we have a different time frame for, I know last time we did this, we talked about an evaluative process for the treasurer.
Can Tom talk more about that? I just don't remember.
So just as we look at different auditors and other contracted professional services, do we as an organization need to do that with the treasurer?
We could think about that. We can talk about that now. We also, in the strategic plan, one of the job descriptions we identified is treasurer, because we do not have one at present. So that would be an important part of that.
Can we send that to the finance committee to look at?
What do you all think?
I think it makes sense.
There is a job description for treasurer. I think it exists.
One for Albany Public Library. So we saw one. Oh boy, I saw one like a year ago. That was never finalized.
When we created the treasurer position, 2005-ish, somewhere in there, I think that was done. I
Okay.
could pull it out and see. That just may be a, lost to history kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's established in the bylaws.
Yes.
The powers.
Bylaws and New York State law too, right, to some extent?
More, the controller's office speaks about it a lot.
Okay.
Education Law 259 requires that you have one, but it really doesn't tell you
Okay.
what it is.
Well, there,
And then there's a civil service job description available too, but we haven't ever fully treated this person as an employee.
it would be appropriate for us to do that? Would it be more appropriate than what we are currently doing?
That's shades of gray. What you're doing is okay. You have a bond in place. It's a board appointed thing. Controller's office would like to see it be an employee, but they don't really have anything that they base that on other than that's what they like. So I wouldn't want to color it to say that that's the right way to do it. It's
Okay.
just certainly their best practice.
Right, so there's some research to do, yes, sir?
So does that mean we're currently treating the treasurer as an independent contractor?
Yes.
For lack of a better, thing.
How much is the stipend?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I think it's budgeted up to 26,000, but we never bill all the way to there. The board asked us for those. I'm trying to think of what we ended up paying last year. Would be on his 1099. We can definitely answer for you for the next facilities meeting. Finance meeting. What we've been paying out, but I think the amount is 26. Like, don't quote me.
That should probably be an employee.
So does it make sense, so does it make sense to postpone this decision until we have more information? No, we need the
Oh, you have
trustee.
to have a treasurer.
Yeah, we need to, right, but,
But
But
you
the
can-
treasurer serves at the pleasure of the board.
That's right,
This is not, there's nothing permanent about your actions.
okay. So
If you
ju-
came up with a different way that you wanted to handle this, you'd have the prerogative to change it.
okay, so let's then appoint Mr. Slatterick and then talk about what we want to do next. We'll clarify.
send it to the finance committee.
Right. Okay. So Jenna, you motioned, Tom, you seconded, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And, okay, so he's appointed, and we're gonna send to the finance committee, job description, to research that.
And recommendation about, you know, what we'd like from the treasurer.
Yep.
And, you know, what our expectations should be, and they may very well be completely met, and just.
Yep.
The treasurer serves the trustees, right,
Yes.
the board.
Yes.
So that's why we kind of need to have a little more investment in that person.
Yeah, I tend to agree. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and I'm glad that we want to see this move forward. Any other opinions about this? We think it's a good idea? Yes, no, maybe, so? Sounds okay?
I don't know. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to suggest that you all involve me in this process only because I've got a bunch of backup that I can share with you. This has been an issue that's been a hot issue in the library communities for the last 10 years or so, when it was sort of first posited that most libraries weren't using the treasurer position correctly. 10 years ago, the prevalent view was that one of you was serving as the treasurer, and that was not right. So we fixed that, and so I have some history. I've got some documents. I've got some best practice stuff, but I think there's also a lot of confusion in some libraries, and I don't think APL is one of them, as to what the role of the position really is. So I'm sort of inviting myself into that process if you don't mind. And I think it'll help you at least inform your process in the discussions that the committee has about it, if I join them at least for that first meeting.
That would be valuable. I just want to add too, when you think about the job description, it's not just the technical stuff, but how the treasurer is supposed to interact with the board, and who and when and how that all happens. That's definitely not.
Yeah, the sole function, not the sole function, the primary function is custody.
Right.
You know, it's custody of the funds and action only upon approval of the board.
Right.
You know, that's really what it is. So, you know, the VP of Finance position that you have is really the sort of more policy-oriented, more fiduciary relationship. And so, you know, I think that we can certainly, you know, have some conversations about how to best set this up.
Okay. Okay, next up is election of board officers, and I was hoping there would be an attachment there.
You have it, right, Rebecca? The script? I sent it to you. Do you have it or no? I can send it to you again if you need to.
Should we just move on to meeting schedule?
Oh, yeah, good thing. All right, so the 2020 board meeting schedule has, the staff have made a draft.
It'll be on in just 5 seconds.
Good. Scott, do you want to talk about it?
Sure, so not much has changed. We did our best to make sure that we did not make any or hit any major holidays. We thought we did in October, but we fixed that. So if you looked at this a few days ago, we would have had a different October date. The other, the other big difference, and it isn't a big difference from last year, is we're doing 2 meetings in February, one of those being a budget meeting, but also it's good to hold on to, because as we ran into with weather last year, it actually, we didn't have to reschedule a board meeting. So we're gonna probably always schedule 2 February meetings, one being a budget presentation, but also as a backup for things that, and for all we know, it might be 80 degrees February, who knows? But, it's still good to have that backup. Other than that, almost all of our meetings are the second Tuesday of the month. And again, we've scheduled in our annual meeting to be here so we can have some festivities. That's about it.
Anyone else see conflicts that stuff didn't catch? All right. I'll take a motion to approve the 2020 meeting schedule. Sarah, thank you. Second, Matthew. Any further discussion? Any discussion at all? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Back to officer elections. All right, we are now ready to conduct the election of officers. We will proceed in the following order: President, Vice President for Finance, and Secretary. I will first open the nominations for the office of President. Does any trustee wish to make a nomination?
I'd like to nominate you. Karen Strong.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thanks, Sarah. Are there any other nominations for president? Okay, hearing no further nominations, I'll entertain a motion to close the nominations for president. Thank you, Jenna.
Move to close the nominations.
And second,
Second.
Tom? I was looking at Tom. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor of closing nominations, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries and nominations are closed. Now is the time for election of president. All those in favor of Karen Strong? Okay, it says all votes must be cast and recorded by name, but do you have what you need, Rebecca? Okay. Based on that vote, the chair declares Karen Strong elected as president for.
Thank you for all your hard work.
I will next open nominations for the office of vice president. Does any trustee wish to make a nomination? I'll make a nomination. I would like to nominate Brenda Robinson for vice president, and I will add that I got a text from her. She's at the ER tonight, and that's why she's not here. So I think everything's okay. But that's.
She will be emergency.
Is she willing to serve?
Yes. That's.
I'll let her when she's not here.
We have discussed it. So I nominated Brenda. Is there a second to that nomination?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Alyssa. Are there any other nominations for vice president? Hearing no further nominations, I'll entertain a motion to close the nominations for vice president.
So moved.
Thank you, Sarah. Second, Matthew. Any discussion? All those in favor of closing nominations, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries and nominations are closed. I will now call for the election for vice president. All those in favor of Brenda Robinson, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, that's everybody. Based on that vote, I declare Brenda Robinson elected as vice president for 2019-2020. I will next open nominations for the office of vice president for finance. Does any trustee wish to make a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Sarah Scherer.
Will she serve?
Does anyone want to second that?
Matthew's got it.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for Vice President for Finance?
We gotta get a good fight going.
Hearing no further nomination, I'll entertain a motion to close nominations for Vice President for Finance. Alyssa, thank you. Second, you want to do a second time? Okay, good job, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor of closing nominations, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries and nominations are closed. I will now call for the election of for Vice President for Finance. All those in favor of Sarah Shearer? Okay, all right. Based on that vote, the chair declares Sarah Shearer elected as Vice President for Finance. Finally, I will open nominations for the office of Secretary. Does any trustee wish to make a nomination?
I nominate Jenna Tara for secretary.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Alyssa, thank you. Are there any other nominations for secretary? Hearing no further nominations, I'll entertain a motion to close the nominations for secretary. Motion made by, I don't need to read them. Alyssa, thank you. I'll take a second for that. Sarah. Any discussion? Alyssa and Sarah Dallas. Any discussion? All those in favor of closing nominations, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries and nominations are closed. I will now call the election for secretary. All those in favor of Jenna Patera.
Aye.
It's everybody. Okay. Based on that vote, that I declare Jenna Patera elected as secretary for 2019-2020. Thank you. Congratulations to all our officers for 2019 and 2020.
Mazel tov.
And also to our attorney for preparing that script. I haven't remembered all of that.
That's a nice one. That's terrific.
Alrighty. So next up is construction grant applications. There's a memo in the packet, which I think was also sent around earlier before the meeting, before the packet came out.
So, Scott, do you want to talk about it, or do you want me to?
I'll chime in. I'll do color commentary.
Color commentary. All right, so the application is for a total amount of $84,000. The Delaware parking lot and roof breaks out at parking lot replacement at $34,000 and roof and drain repair at $20,000. You'll notice those numbers next to that. That refers to our facilities plan. And so these are items that were recognized in our facility plans for Delaware. So that's the joy of having done a facilities plan for each of the buildings. We're actually addressing them. So parking lot is in need of replacement. We have accessibility issues and mobility issues, and because it's very popular, we have a farmer's market in there in the summer weekly through September and October, and then the roof is in need of repair. We have water buildup and ice buildup in the winter. And what happens is it drips on the walkway, and so we need some good roof work there, which we've known about. So that's a total, so that expected $40,500 from the grant and $13,500 from APL. And the next is the generator situation, which I think is a brilliant idea and something that places the library, doesn't place the library. The library is already in the position of being the destination for help and for a physical destination that can be relied upon. And if we have these generators in these two locations, and the reason these locations were chosen is they're on kind of opposite ends of our reach there, and have a greater potential for servicing a larger amount of community from those directions. And so the generators are gas generators. So they will have to be plugged in, they'll have to be connected to natural gas in those locations. So they're not, there's no way we can have propane generators at that size. So they're not, if there was a real natural disaster and all the gas was turned off, we wouldn't be able to generate. But in the case of electrical problems, we could generate with the gas generator. So there's electrical work and the generator costs $10,000. So the staff recommended, let's try one, and we reminded them that we've got this not extra money, but they increased the state construction grant, so why not try for a larger piece of it? So it could be that we don't get something on this, but I think it's a good start. And did they just add generators, or generators were part of the application?
I think we actually did the generator here as part of the construction grant.
Okay.
So I think it's been a part of the program for a while now.
Oh, and we have a generator here, right?
We do.
Yeah, okay. So that's why those two locations, so it's kind of like a triangle grid there.
So we need a motion to,
You need a second.
right,
The
'cause
committee
it's
made a
committee
recommendation.
recommendations, so we need a second, because this, so the library can apply for this, this grant.
And these will be, just to clarify, these have to be three separate applications because they're three separate locations.
Okay. So to apply for 3 different applications, or 3 different grants. Any discussion on any of these?
Are you gonna prioritize them so Upper Hudson knows which is the most important for you?
Yeah, there's always a discussion. I'm sure we will get a call from the director of the system. There is always a conversation about what's most important, what should we go forward with, what can you afford to do if it's a 40-60 coverage. I'm gonna put Delaware ahead in this because that's part of our facilities plan, and that's work we can't live without, so we will have to find other funding to do it. So that'll be our primary, but, if the governor, as you've pointed out, if the governor signs this doubling of our money, I would be surprised if we didn't get all 3 in one way or another.
Do we know how Upper Hudson is conducting the grant?
Last year, they conducted it the way they had conducted it for many, many years. So we're assuming that might be the same process. Dana and I worked on this the week before a friend of the organization pointed out that the doubling of the money happened. So we always give multiple options, and this kind of worked out for us. But we, like most libraries, kind of were doing a smaller ask because we thought the money would be so much less. There is also the possibility that if the governor signs a new piece of legislation, that there will actually be a 90-10 coverage.
Oh.
So fingers crossed. But I do know there are some larger libraries in our system that are actually going for projects since the announcement that the money's been doubled. So I think it will be equitable like it had been in past years and what was done last year. I would be really surprised, and Matthew will know because he'll be sitting at the table if they decide to go back to the process that they used.
No indication that they would do the anomaly version.
We're still smarting.
Yes. Well, we feel slightly vindicated based on last year's award.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion to allow the library to apply for the grants? Okay. All in favor? Oh,
Did you call a second?
No,
Sarah-
Sarah was
Sarah
the second.
did. Okay,
The first
sorry.
was the.
sorry. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great, thank you.
Thank you. Next up is public comment. Does anyone would like
Yes.
to make a comment?
Yes.
Okay.
Stand up to do this?
You can stay up to this, but so I just want to let you know that you have 5 minutes and you make comment and you listen and don't respond.
Hi, I'm Danielle Cregan. I am frontline circulation staff at Washington Avenue, and I have some opinions about the survey. If we had the survey available on paper from the beginning, I think we would get a better response to it. I handed out a lot of those URLs, and I know a lot of them didn't get used. Once we started handing out paper, I had people fill it out in front of me, hand it back to me. I had a really good return rate with the paper ones. We have these lovely blue shopping baskets. If we stuck one of those by the entrance to each location and had the paper surveys available at the CERT desk, I think we'd probably get a pretty decent hit rate back on them. Also, I know we were sent talking points about it. Not a lot of people have the ability to synthesize those talking points into a spiel. I came up with like a 3, 4, 5 sentence spiel I gave people. Hi, we're doing our survey. We really appreciate your opinion. We've changed a lot of things in the past 6 months. We want to know whether you're liking them or not. If we came up with like a short little spiel we could distribute to staff that people could say instead of giving them talking points and expecting them to generate that themselves, it might affect the amount of response we get from patrons. Scott said something about standing somebody at the door at Arbor Hill with a tablet to fill it out. I don't know if he was being facetious, but that sounds like a decent idea to me. We don't have tablets that we circulate anymore, so I'm not sure where we would acquire them from. But I think it's, another way to increase the amount of response we get to these surveys. I personally pushed these surveys as hard as I could. So when I heard there were 600 responses and 30 paper responses, I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty good. But now that I know we're shooting for over 1,000, I'm going to push it even harder next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're ready to adjourn because I don't believe we need an executive session. But I'll use my opportunity with the floor for a couple of reminders. One, has anyone not set up their APL email address yet? And if so, if you need help, there's people who will help you. You can talk to me afterwards. There are 3, yes.
That's a question. So if we do need help on any of it, who on the staff should we call? Rebecca?
Jenna has offered to help people set up their
I'll
Gmails.
help you set it up.
Yeah, I just need to feed into my other email,
So,
right?
full
Can I do that?
disclosure, I did that wrong when I first did it. But I can show you how I fixed it.
Can I choose somebody else?
Yes.
I'm available for help as well.
Who made mistakes.
I'm teasing you.
Yes.
Rebecca is for board docs. Right.
Yes.
But if anybody needs help with the email, I can help out with that as well.
I also figured out a fancy way to see all my emails with them not getting screwed up.
Yeah, there's a drop down situation
Yeah,
you can do.
because
It's really cool.
I don't want it forwarding because I will end up sending you from there.
I love having like 5 emails.
I
Yeah.
know.
So
I have-
Sarah also can do
Yeah.
this really well.
And the forwarding could be a FOIA, what do we call it in New York
Oh,
issue? Because if it's forwarding, then it could put your private email.
So let's talk about that for a second, and I'll let Bob talk about it. One of the reasons it's great that we have a separate APL email address is because as public officials, our email is subject to the Freedom of Information law. And so it's better to have a separate email, right, Bob?
It's better to have a second email, because if you use it exclusively, then the only email that is quote-unquote in the library's possession as a public record will be the official public email. If each of you is using your own email to conduct business, then by extension through you, the email account is a public record that can be searched for FOIL purposes. So that's one of the primary reasons we want you to do it. Second is we have some control over it for security purposes and things like that. Theoretically, at least, we can apply some virus protection and went to that account, and that's a good thing. But ultimately, it does relate to the fact that as trustees, your email communications with respect to the business of the library are, potentially subject to disclosure under the Freedom of Information Law.
How is forwarding affect
If you're using the email address, APL trustee, share, whatever it is that we've set up as a thing, exclusively, regardless of whether it's bouncing between things, you should be fine as long as you're consistently using your APL address to do the communication. Okay, the mere fact that that may land in a different inbox won't change the fact that it's the account that's being used, but just be very careful that you use your APL account to do your work and you won't have an issue.
It also gives you an APL identity to put on the business cards that we're going to get eventually, and allows people in the public then to be able to have our email addresses if you don't want to put your personal out, if you don't want to put your personal one out. So, yes.
I think you said something about encryption. So should everything be encrypted back and forth?
I definitely did not send anything about encryption because I don't.
Where did I see that? I saw something about different levels of encryption.
So I'm looking at Melanie. Because I think she would know.
It's possible it had
Yeah.
to do with, sorry, I'm guessing, I shouldn't be guessing.
I think it's a setting you can do in Google. It's not something that we generally enable. So.
But are there certain emails that should be encrypted, dealing with personnel, dealing with finance, dealing with possible grants, dealing with, is it something we should be?
If it's a larger conversation, I think probably
Let's have that.
we'll have to have.
There frankly shouldn't be a whole lot of personnel
Yeah.
information that library, that trustees are getting via email, period.
No.
So, I don't think that's a major issue, but if it's a policy question we want to ask, we certainly can. I have a partner at the firm that deals with data security issues, so we could ask him to do a little bit of training on it if we decide we want to.
Yeah, I feel like historically, even with minutes from executive session, they're typically not emailed out. They're handed to us at the meetings here. So I think generally,
And board docs, as Becky trained you all last month, does have some capability to restrict access to documents once she categorizes them a certain way. So when you log into your board docs, if there are, as you all know, you get the agenda in a draft form prior to being released for public. But even once you're in public form, there can be documents, particularly executive session documents, that are locked off. So I think that's primarily the way we would communicate, not via email. But, you will every once in a while get an email from me, or you'll see an email from Scott copied to me with the intention that we're invoking privilege with respect to that email. But we try and minimize that as well.
Anyway, lots of good reasons to have our separate APL email, and if we need help, we will help. Yes, go ahead, Matthew.
It did occur to me when I was sending this last minute document from my personal Google Drive that I could have done that on Albany Public Library.org Google Drive, just putting that out there. I just thought of myself, but I'm sure most people thought of that.
And if you need to, and you can connect your old one, or share it with your new address, in case, like me, we're struggling with how to deal with that.
I have a lot of Google
Yeah,
Drives.
so, but I had a lot of APL stuff there. And so, Alyssa, you just did your committee selection. So, Arlene, I'm gonna need you to do that committee selection. The executive committee meeting is going to be July 29th. Which we'll put out, where we're gonna be assigning people to committees. Scott's performance review is coming up, and my bad, we should have done this in June, not June and August. And we'll fix that next year, but here we are. So I've only got 3 responses. So I I would like to get more of those, and I can send out a new reminder on that, especially after everyone's caught up with APL email.
I got distracted. You only got 3 responses on the
Evaluation.
Yes. Yeah, and I know who didn't do committees, I don't know who didn't do responses, because people, I
Oh,
didn't look
because
to
it's
see.
private.
Yeah, that's right. So, just a reminder to do that. I know, Sarah, you said you're gonna sit out, and that's okay, totally fine. Any questions about any of that? Okay. Now I'll take a motion to adjourn. Jenna? Second?
Second.
Tom, thank you. All in favor?